Now, do we have sound?
I wonder.
And here's the other thing too. I suppose to a degree, it's a function of once we change something, then how long to take before it gets out to the rest of the internet.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think that's one of the challenging things here too.
Here's the thing, to a degree, even if this episode turns out to be kind of I don't want to say burner, but just in the way of like, what was that all about? Really, here's what we're asking you for. What we're asking you for is, if you like and support the Fedora Podcast, when you hear, if there's anything I've learned about the downside of the internet, here it is. If people don't have the information, they just fill in the blanks. They just kind of make it up. And then they sprinkle in what they think is. So as you see that happening, if nothing else, you can point back and be like, look, the scenes are terribly laid out. They have like a loosely blue thing, and then there was two of them, and I could see both of them, but I couldn't hear the one guy for a little bit, and eventually we got that worked out and all the things. But they're working on it, and over time I think we'll get it dialed in, and not only will we get it dialed in, we'll get it to a point to where anybody else can do this. The process will be documented, the tools will be documented, the equipment will be documented, and so anybody can pick that up and say, I'm either going to do that to further the flag of Fedora or for some other thing that I'm doing. I think will turn into this cool community project. If you look behind me, there is probably $25,000 worth of broadcasting equipment, and I'm not using any of it. I mean, I could, right? I could just slide. That would have been the easy way, the logical way to do this. I host Ask Noel every week. It'd be very easy to go get Noel loaded up on the secondary machine there, or take it through the Axia board. We'd be on the air and everything would be great. The problem with doing that is it presupposes that you have access to a full-on broadcasting studio to be able to do the Fedora podcast. We don't think that's the way it should be done. And so if this works out the way we think it will work out, hopefully it will, then we're going to get to the point where Noel can take a box and he can host the Fedora podcast some weeks. Noah can take a box. He can host the Fedora podcast some weeks. And whoever it is that follows behind us in the bridge that we've laid will have a nice path, a documented path with all of the tools and resources to get to the other side. That's the hope. But you're watching that bridge being built real time. So if that's of interest to you, and if that conversation is like, yeah, it's really cool, I want to hang out with the nerds and figure that out, great. If not, show up in a couple weeks. We'll probably have it worked out by then. Do we have sound?
That's a good question. I think Owen is saying in the chat here that we do have sound now. Right. It seems to be fixed.
From both of us.
I'm hopeful that both of us are at least being able to be heard.
Okay, so if we missed this part, can you give people, again, your 30-second elevator pitch? Who's Noel and why are you here?
Sure. Yeah. So 30-second elevator pitch in case folks don't know who I am. Hi, I'm Noel Miller. I am from the Universal Blue Project. I'm one of the core contributors on that. It is a umbrella project for the projects Bazite and Project Bluefin. Both of those projects are based on the bootable containers technology and are both downstreams of Fedora, as well as Bluefin is currently building their LTS based off of CentOS. I have been part of that project for several years now. As far as what I do in my day job, I am a Red Hatter, so I work as a technical account manager with a focus on Ansible and solving any type of automation problems that folks seem to be running into. My desires and goals for the podcast are to be able to spread the message of Fedora successfully and hopefully get more people involved and interested, as well as celebrating the really cool things that we are building here with some awesome interviews and behind the scenes sort of things, which, I mean, maybe not behind the scenes is the right word because we're an open source project. So everything is out in the open, but really trying to highlight those things that are being done in the community.
And you've been working on those things. You call it behind the scenes, you call it behind the curtain, whatever it is. But the reality is you've been a part of the show for quite some time. You're just coordinating in the chat, helping get guests connected, solving technical issues for us, helping Eric and I remember where we're at and what we're doing, which can be a challenge from some days. So I'm really deeply grateful to working with you so far. I have to tell you, again, done it a number of different ways, done it at a number of different places for a number of different reasons, but this has been the most open, collaborative thing I think I've ever seen organically unfold. It's really incredible. There's, at least behind the scenes, has been really no hard feelings, no problems. Like, there's technical things, sure, but we're just nerds working through it on the internet, and that's been kind of fun. And the prospect of taking, I think, what we've been able to dial in and say, okay, here's what anybody could just pick up and plug in and do, I think that's kind of cool. That's the way
Mhm.
Fedora should be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the coolest things that we've really been doing behind the scenes on the show, and I mean from purely a practical perspective, the tech that we were using to host the show was very, very solid. We, were very appreciative of being able to get Restream going and everything else. But what we have switched to recently is more of an open source stack from pretty much top to bottom. From my understanding, Noah, it's pretty much Owncast for, or no, it was, well, we were thinking about doing Owncast, but we end up going somewhere else.
I'll tell you what. So let's do this. Let's start by saying, if you are in the audience and you have a thought for us, you're like, hey, here's the way you could do this. Go this route. So couple different ways, again, we can approach this. And we would be interested to hear what you think and how you would architect this problem. But we've got two competing issues. One is we desperately desire to break away from all this proprietary stuff and get into, not all this proprietary stuff, but the reality is when subscription services run out, it takes tools away and out of the toolbox. So we're trying to, as we go fix the holes that are around, we're trying to do that in a way where it's all open source so that the road can never cave in again. And as we're trying to do that, we're competing. There's two competing ideas. One idea is, so great, open source top to bottom. Awesome. Great. Got it. Owncast. Let's do that. The problem becomes, is everybody willing to go to Owncast to watch the show? If the answer to that question is yes, awesome. We get with the Fedora people to embed an Owncast stream on fedoraproject.org and we're solid. The problem is going to become if the answer to that question is no, we're not willing to go to fedoraproject.org and only fedoraproject.org to watch it. I prefer YouTube and I prefer Twitch and I prefer if we're going to do face TwitchTube, then there's two ways that we can approach that. One is the Nginx route. We raw dog cowboy our way into streaming to multiple places because at the moment OBS doesn't support multiple sources. Option two, and what we're using today, our friends over at Scale Engine. Is it an open source platform that we can go download and self-host? Well, maybe not, but Alan is a good open source dude, BSD guy, but still good, solid dude who's done tremendous work in the open source community, particularly as it relates to ZFS. So do we mind if we chug a few dollars his direction and then he is kind enough to pick up our stream from our open source platform and send it to all the places that you want to watch it? Yeah, I think that's probably okay. So, but we're open to feedback. If you're like, no, there's a better way and you should totally be using this, that, or the other, we're open to hear that. At the moment, here's what we've done. I hope everybody comes back, Noel. I hope everybody comes back and says, let's do Owncast. Let's own the thing that we're going to do, and let's have it all on fedoraproject.org, and everybody goes there to watch the show live. If you're interested in doing that, and then it's posted in all the places when you want to go download it. I hope that's the answer we get back. If not, though, we're going to, we'll over time, we will build Fedora Podcast core thing, whatever that is, and put that wherever it is it's going to go. And then we're going to reach the fingers out into all the socials, as the kids say these days. And we'll try to meet you where you're at. Lowest common denominator, least amount of resistance for you to be able to hear and see our smiling mugs on your on your glowing thing. That's the goal.
And if I may, I mean, I think that's really a big deal is meeting folks where they're at, and I think if we can ultimately come up with a open source solution where you're able to watch it, embedded as a stream directly on, not to say that this is anything we can do right now, but something, we can think about is like, is there a page like podcast.fedora.com that you could literally just go to? And if we have a live show, you can see us there, or any of the list of episodes that are available, or, we are able to disseminate out from there and say, okay, we're going to simul stream to YouTube, Twitch, any of the places that folks might be interested in watching the show and being able to meet them there too. I think ideally the more places we can reach, as long as they make sense, the better, the more engagement that we ultimately will run into.
Imagine if, though, people come back and they're like, no, listen, we'll go out to the internet and we'll tell all the people that are listening on YouTube, that are listening on Twitch, that are watching on all these places to go to, as you were saying, podcast.fedora project, and you get everybody to go to one thing. And while they're there, they get to stumble into what Fedora is up to and what latest releases are coming out and what the newest features and all of those things. Seems like that's the that's a cool way to pump the Fedora flag, as if we're all going to that place. But if not,
Mhm.
we'll meet them wherever they are, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I think the biggest challenge we'll run into from a production standpoint is just if we're streaming to multiple different places, we are going to have folks chatting on each one of those platforms. So keeping up with folks will definitely be an interesting challenge. I know that there are solutions that folks have built to be able to see multiple, streams, chats, and that sort of thing made available to them. But I do think that for me personally, like trying to standardize on an open first type of platform, and really, like you said, having a podcast kit in a box where if folks want to talk about things related to, or podcasting or anything, like Fedora can be, something that you can rely on and basically be like, yeah, we've paved this road, we've done it all open source, it all works, it's great.
Since you bring up chat, would now be an appropriate time to say #podcast:fedoraproject.org. And that's where you can join us in the Matrix chat. And so what's kind of nice about that is over time, maybe we would get to a place to where YouTube chat is tied there, Twitch chat is tied there, and it can be one place. But if you're looking for a freedom, privacy respecting place to join us, well, you can do that inside of an anonymous web browser if you want to. Or you can install Element or one of the very many Matrix clients there are and join #podcast :fedoraproject.org.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely think that whatever friction we can remove for folks being able to join and be involved in the live show, I think is very, very huge. I think another thing to think about as well is really something that I've been talking about with Noah, and I don't know if this is something of interest to folks, would be the idea of having basically a live show where we have like the entire pre-show recorded with whatever guest we have, and really being able to, oh, interesting, I don't see Noah anymore on the actual live stream here.
I'm
I
still
just
here.
see me now.
I'm still here.
Oh,
I'm
interesting.
what
Yeah, like I don't
it's
know if the layout
yeah,
changed, but it's
exactly.
just me.
I can switch
Okay.
between the
Oh, okay, cool. All right. Awesome. Well, that's good to know. Anyway, so as I was saying, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that, from a production standpoint, I would love the idea of having a pre-show where folks can see us actually interacting with the guests before we actually do the live episode, just to have opportunities to be able to, even potentially ask questions before we even start or get involved in the chat, and then having a more cut focused one where essentially we have, the entirety of the show, we cut the pre-show and then we cut the post-show and we ship that to the rest of the folks that didn't tune into the live stream. And then an additional thing on top of that, if folks are, using platforms like TikTok or YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels or any of that type of stuff, we could have shorts that would actually be moments from the show that would lead back to the actual show itself and be able to actually bring folks in. Maybe there was a, like I said, a funny moment that happened, or this is all kind of just back end stuff, things that I've been thinking about how the show could evolve and change, because ultimately, man, I mean, I'm a millennial. That's the generation that I come from, and really the changes in attention span and folks listening to long form content is, it's different now. Not to say that there aren't folks that listen to long form content, but there really is a change in like how I discover new content on YouTube is, funny enough, a lot of times either through shorts or just very short clipped versions of a video, and then I will watch the rest of it.
You know what's interesting? It's interesting. So what I'm hearing you say is that it becomes the bait. It becomes the bait that draws you in. And so if there were people in the community that went and found little shareable pieces, and this might be a great opportunity for us to start incorporating some of the podcast 2.0 stuff that natively builds this in. But they were to go and clip some of their favorite parts and share it around and say, I got the most value. Those guys yacked for 2 hours, but the most valuable thing I got out of it was this 10-minute thing. And that might be a different 10-minute thing than a different part of the episode that somebody else found super valuable. They're willing to share those things out. We kind of get the best of both worlds, right? All the information's there if you're looking for it. But to the
Yep.
extent that you're not, and to the extent that you're just trying to, you're letting the internet entertain you, as it were, fine. Let's leverage those things. I think that's great.
Yep. And one other thing from a production perspective that we just got feedback on is that I think I am panned to the left from an audio perspective. Not sure.
Yeah,
Could be that I'm a mono stream and maybe that's how it's coming through. Or I guess it's not mono because yeah, I'm panned to the left.
Perhaps a prop. Whoa, you know what? Oh. How about this guy? If I click on that there button, how's about now?
How do I sound now, everybody? Am I still panned to the left?
To be
And
fair,
Edward is posting in the chat as well that they would be interested in helping us with TikTok, reel style content for our podcasts. And I think that like I said,
you've been on the show
it's
for
one
less
of
than
those
46
things.
minutes and you already had an impact. Look at that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's the other thing too is really having more volunteers and folks that are yay, we're stereo. Awesome. I think getting more folks who are interested and involved in the show to be involved is really valuable because at the end of the day, this is a community effort. We have a completely open Fedora Podcast Matrix channel that we do pretty much most all the communication. There was a transition channel for a little bit, and ultimately, I think that's going to be going away here shortly. It was mostly just for transition types of things, but yeah, like most of the communications from a planning perspective and everything else, Noah are going to be planning the shows right in front of you. There's nothing
with
that
you.
is really to hide. I mean, it's just all there. Like
I think that I might say with you, right? So like if there's somebody out there and they're saying to themselves, they look in they join, let's say they join podcast:fedoraproject.org. And they watch as you and I are going back and forth and inviting a guest and shifting a time around and all the things. And all of a sudden, at the last possible minute, because that's the way it happens, guest drops out, can't make it, be next week. We understand things come up, world shifts, move on. And that person says, my gosh, I am also working on a really cool project or doing a really cool thing. And now I'm watching as there's an opportunity to go do a thing. Or maybe I don't do that thing, but I certainly know somebody that's doing that thing. And I can put those two together. And so that, again, out in the open, very transparent, not hiding anything, no curtain, no wall. It means that you're going to watch the transition from mono to stereo. It means that you're going to watch the audio drop out. It means you're going to watch all those things. It also means you get to watch what those solutions are, how we fix those things. And again, drawing your attention to the people that are coming behind us. Everybody else will have a paved road. That's the idea. We'll see if it works out that way.
Yeah, and Edward was saying that they were the original host of the podcast. So far before us taking this show over and running
Edward
it.
has an open invitation too. He can come on anytime. Asking Eric.
Yep, exactly. Any of the previous hosts of the podcast, in fact, we are happy to get feedback or involvement or even just coming back on the show and having a conversation about what it takes to make content in the open source world and being able to spread the message. So yeah, anyone who has been involved in the podcast previous to now, or wants to get involved in the future, we're happy to have you on the show or get involved.
Let's talk about consistency and frequency. So this is something that we've gone back and forth. There's been a lot of discussion. What can people expect going forward by way of consistency and by way of frequency? How often is the show going to be recorded? Where is it going to be published? Where should people look for it? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so I think ultimately what we're looking at doing is we're going to try to do an every other week cadence. I know that there are other shows that have a weekly cadence that they do. Unfortunately, from a scheduling perspective, like unless we got another volunteer that would be interested in doing a lot of the production, like we were talking about. I mean, we could look at in the future. But as of right now, it's probably going to be an every other week cadence. We need to get guests lined up if we're going to have folks to interview on the show. We're also going to need to do all of the production stuff in the background. If we're going to be making shorts and that sort of thing, we're going to need, a week where we're not actually doing the show to be able to work on that stuff. So that's what we're looking at from a cadence and regularity perspective. Where we'll be publishing it, ideally, I would like to try to publish it on as many major platforms as we can. Me specifically, I listen on Spotify, as well as, we're going to have it on YouTube as a live stream here. Ultimately, I'd like to get the Twitch simulcast going as well, just because there's a very large community of tech folks that are involved there. And any other places that folks can think of to be able to consume the podcast. I know that someone was mentioning PeerTube. That would be another option as well. I know that Noah is involved with running the PeerTube instance that we would go to. So yeah, I think for us personally, we're just trying to see if we can do a regular cadence with and publishing it to as many places as we can.
Absolutely, 100%. The last thing that I kind of wanted to touch on, if we can, and if we want to discuss this out in the open, maybe it's best. So anyway, to the extent that we can, and to the extent that we're doing a good job and you see things you like, let us know. To the extent that we're screwing it up and you're like, hey, knuckleheads, you should be doing it this way, or you should be using that. We're open to that. It's all out in the open. When is our next episode scheduled? Who is our next guest?
Yeah, so I think what we're looking at right now is that Peter Boy was, which is, I believe, with the Fedora server group, was interested in an interview. So I would like that to be the next show. I still need to confirm with him when that will be. But ultimately, I think I would like to try to get back on track either, this next coming week, or probably it's looking more like in the next 2 weeks. I know that I have some travel as well, which could impact the show. I will be gone for Summit, which I don't know if that will land on a week that we're going to be doing it, as well as I will hopefully be attending Flock. Still kind of working through that, but if folks are going to be at Flock, I would love to chat and see you there and capture anything. I think what could be potentially cool, I don't know if it's feasible given what I could bring in my suitcase, but potentially like a live podcast from Fedora Flock would be pretty cool, just as an opportunity to be able to get engaged with the community. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at right now, is probably within the next, we're going to go with an every other week cadence. So I'm thinking probably not this coming Tuesday, but the next.
Outstanding. Hey, Noel, thanks a lot for taking the time to join me. Thank you very much to those who watched and put up with less than perfect quality stuff. I think over time, I really think it'll be kind of cool. I really do. Like I said, there was an easy way to do this. It's not that we don't have access to better ways to do it. I just think this better represents what Fedora is and the way that everything really should be done. Out in the open, very transparent. If you know, if you care, you can come look behind the curtain. If you don't, wait until it gets perfected and polished and marketed and all the things, and we'll get there. It'll take a few weeks to get there, but I think we'll get there. And join us consistently on Tuesdays to hang out with Fedora Podcast. Noel, when you're not doing the Fedora Podcast, what are you doing?
Sure. Man, what do I do these days? So we've got the Fedora 42 release that's coming for Bazite and Bluefin. So we're actively working with upstream, as well as in our own build process, to be able to get Fedora 32 kicked out the door on time. We ideally, I'm not quoting any specific release date, because that's a recipe for disaster, but ideally we try to aim for as close to the release date as possible of actual Fedora 42 to line up the projects. And then as far as anything else, I mean, just trying to enjoy life, hang out with the kids when I can, and hang out with the dogs and go for walks and such.
Absolutely. You can catch me. Ask Noah is Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Central at AskNoahShow.com. No, I will see you back in 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good, man. Take it easy.
How's that?
Pretty good, I think. Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to